yesterday we did go ahead and have the hearings on the TARP funding before the Financial Services Committee. Of course, Bernanke didn't show up. His assistant, the Vice Chairman of the Federal Reserve, Cohn, came instead. I did get an opening statement and made some comments about the silliness of the whole process of bailing out everybody, but also had 5 minutes to ask the Vice Chairman a few questions. Although the hearings were billed on the subject of the TARP funding, I was very interested in following up on the transparency of the Fed. So I asked questions about why it was that Bernanke was in Basel, Switzerland, having a meeting, and whether I could get access to those minutes, and why is it that Congress never has this ability to know exactly what the Fed is doing. But he was calm and cool and said, well, he wanted to reassure me that the Fed is very open, that you take the minutes about the Federal Open Market Committee meetings, and in 5 years we can read the minutes. At the same time, if they have any major decisions made at Basel, Switzerland that we need to know about, we will hear about it. So it was just sort of putting us off once again, realizing that we have no legal authority to get the information about what goes on secretly. But I had a conversation with Barney Frank afterwards, and he once again has assured me that we will in February have some more hearings on pushing for more transparency of the Federal Reserve System, and he actually said that at the hearing himself itself that he would pursue this. Today we are going to be starting the debate on the TARP funding on the House floor. Hopefully I will get a chance to make a few comments there, but this will take 2 days. We'll go into Thursday before we finalize that bill, and that means to give the authority to give $350 billion to Obama as soon as he comes into office. Right now there's very little supervision of these funding, and the chairman, Barney Frank, is arguing that the House should have more input. But of course, many of his suggestions just makes the situation that much worse. So we will see what happens. But I also have a piece of legislation that I will be introducing soon. It's going to deal with the transparency of the Federal Reserve, that we do have legal access to this information. And hopefully that will be introduced rather soon. If I get a chance on the House floor to deal with the TARP funding, I want to emphasize the issue of moral hazard. Because in a way, just about everything we do up here encourages moral hazard, whether it's easy credit by the Federal Reserve or guarantees to the Treasury to bail out Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, or government guarantees of insurance and government guarantees of bailouts. It just encourages people to make the wrong decisions. And one thing that is in Chairman Frank's bill is that they would make permanent the $250,000 FDIC insurance for all of our deposits in all banks, which on the surface sounds pretty good, because in a way it sort of calms the market. There's no doubt about it. On a short run you can say, well, that has a benefit. But this is all part of this moral hazard. If you had private insurance, it would be handled much differently. But when the government does it, it can last for a long time and contribute to the bubble formation. And then that just means more trouble down the road. The way I'm looking at it right now is on some of these things that they call, well, on the short run, we have to do this. Short term is helpful, and worry about the long term later on. But the way I look at what's happening today is the long term is already here. Everything that we do today has an immediate effect. Instead of saying, oh, this is okay, we can spend the money and pass it on to the next generation, I think the problems are hitting the current generation. We can't do that anymore. And sort of proof of this is that every program the Fed has come up with and everything that the Congress has done, really hasn't done anything to calm the markets. The markets aren't satisfied by this. And the only thing that will eventually satisfy the markets will be the liquidation of debt and the elimination of all the malinvestment that we, over many decades, have encouraged. Then we can go back to work. And I think the current events more or less prove something that I have talked about for many years, and that is if an individual lives beyond his or her means, they will eventually have to live beneath their means. And it works with a country. If a country lives beyond its means, lives on borrowed money, and spends all the money on consumption, it will be destined to live beneath its means. And that's what we're recognizing today. The sooner we recognize the cause of this financial crisis, and the sooner we get back to the basics of free markets and sound money, the better. For us to allow the opposition to blame capitalism for the problems that we have will be disastrous for us. So we have a big job ahead of us, but believe me, we're making progress.